Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one. The introduction. The scent of damp earth lingered in the air, a reminder of the heavy rain that swept through Lawrence Township just days before. The darkened clouds had since parted, leaving a pale sun to cast an eerie glow over the quiet streets, which usually bustled with the laughter of children and the chatter of neighbors. On this particular Sunday morning, however, an unsettling hush cloaked the community as residents braced themselves for a grim discovery. It began with a simple call to the local police department, a report of a foul odor emanating from a wooded area near the banks of the Rancocas Creek. The caller, a spirited local fisherman, had arrived at his favorite spot to find his usual sanctuary distorted by an unnatural presence. As the officer arrived on the scene, he could feel the weight of the chilling atmosphere. The air was thick, pregnant with a foreboding sense of expectation. Navigating through the twisting paths woven amongst the trees, the officer soon found himself standing at the water's edge, the sun casting long shadows as he scanned the area. With every step, unease settled deeper into his bones. And then he saw Ida break in the foliage, a flash of pale skin starkly contrasting the dark, muddy ground. What lay before him was a partially buried figure, barely discernible beneath a shroud of leaves and twigs. With a heavy heart, he called for backup, knowing that this would be the first step into a dark and intricate case that would disturb the very fabric of the town for years to come. As other officers arrived, they began to cordon off the area, not yet aware of the horrors that would soon unfold. The victim. The body found at the Rancocas Creek belonged to a young woman named Emily Harris, just 24 years old. A vibrant spirit, Emily had often been described as the kind of person who could light up a room merely by entering. She had a smile, contagious enough to brighten even the cloudiest of days, and her laughter resonated in the hearts of those who knew her. But her life, filled with dreams and ambition, had been abruptly severed in a tragic twist of fate. As forensic teams worked diligently, combing through the evidence at the scene, the details of Emily's life came into sharper focus. Her family was well known in Lawrence Township, deeply rooted, tightly knit, and loved by many. A graduate of the local college, she had pursued a degree in environmental science, working part-time at a nonprofit organization dedicated to conservation. Friends and colleagues described her as passionate, driven, and devoted. She dreamed of traveling the world, advocating for the planet, and that was the irony. Her life had ended right on the banks of a once serene creek she adored. The autopsy revealed chilling details. Emily had sustained trauma indicative of an assault. The coroner's report described signs of struggle bruising, scratches, marks, where she had fought against her assailant. And yet her wallet and phone were untouched. These details were haunting, suggesting a predator had targeted her, perhaps even while she had been enjoying a tranquil moment alone in the woods. As news of her death spread like wildfire through the town, the shockwaves reverberated among all who knew her. Mourning quickly turned to outrage. A dark shadow had fallen over what was once a safe haven. People gathered to pay their respects, lighting candles in Emily's memory, unaware that the investigation into her murder was just beginning and the answers would not come easy. The crime scene. The murmur of voices swirled around the area like a haunting echo as law enforcement officials examined the wooded crime scene. The late morning light struggled to pierce through the thick canopy of tree branches overhead, casting a damp gloom over the surrounding foliage. Every detail held significance, Every blade of grass disturbed was a breadcrumb toward understanding the final moments of Emily Harris's life. An evidence technician crouched by the edge of the creek, gently brushing away leaves to uncover a deeper layer of truth. Near the water's edge, a small speck of bright red lay entrenched in a muta fragment of Emily's favorite scarf. It was a scarf she often wore with pride. Her friends recalled it fondly during moments of remembrance. Carefully, he placed it in an evidence bag, understanding its importance as both a clue and a symbol. As investigators combed through dense underbrush, they slowly uncovered more evidence. A broken fingernail, chipped and bloodied, was found nearby, suggesting a desperate struggle for survival. Officers picked up rock and soil samples, meticulously cataloging their findings. Every clue could lead them closer to Emily's assailant or further into a wilderness of mystery. Detective Lisa Chang arrived, her demeanor calm yet resolute. She had a knack for piecing together fragmented stories into cohesive narratives, a skill that would be put to the test. She scanned the area, assessing where everything unfolded. Her intuition told her that whoever had done this would have left whispers behind a misplaced shoe, a drop of sweat, anything that could form a trail leading to justice. By dusk, officers wrapped up their primary sweep of the area, but knew this was far from over. Tape marked the scene like a warning, reminding those who entered that darkness lurked mere shadows away. The excitement of what lay ahead was tinged with the somber reality of what had been lost. A promising young life extinguished too soon. The echoes of her laughter now replaced by the cries for justice. The case had only just begun, and the town, along with Detective Chang, braced themselves for the journey into the abyss. The early investigation. The following days were a whirlwind in Lawrence Township, an avalanche of emotions gripping the community like a vice. Detective Lisa Chang arrived at the station, her desk cluttered with paperwork, photographs of Emily Harris, and a handwritten note scrawled with potential leads. Teams were dispatched to canvass the area, knocking on doors, seeking any whispers of the young woman's last movements. The investigation kicked off with interviews that ranged from sorrowful to shocking. Emily's closest friends Selena and Mark were among the first to be questioned, their faces stained with grief. In an informal, tear-filled interview, they recounted the last weekend they had spent with Emily. It had been a picnic by the creek where laughter flitted through the trees and sunlight danced on the water's surface. But after that, things had taken a tragic turn. They recalled Emily mentioning a strange man lurking in the area on previous visits, a fleeting concern that hadn't been taken seriously then. As the detective dug deeper, it became painfully clear that the town was woven with threads of secrets. Witnesses began to emerge, some claiming to have seen a man in his 30s loitering near the creek in the days leading up to Emily's death. Descriptions varied. Some said he had a scruffy beard. Others mentioned dark clothing, but all agreed that there was something unsettling about it. Back at the precinct, Detective Chang pieced together the information, correlating witness statements with timeline gaps. She studied Emily's social media accounts, examining photos for clues, capturing a digital footprint of her interaction. Friends turned to suspects, and suspects turned to leads as she meticulously crafted a profile of people who crossed paths with Emily in her final days. Days passed, but the sun began to set earlier, the chill deepening. Though evidence remained elusive, the sense of urgency heightened. The department was under pressure. The town needed reassurance, and Emily's loved ones demanded justice. With every tick of the clock, the investigators sensed a tightening noose around the mystery. fingers poised over a fragile thread that promised to unravel the whole darkness in one deft pull. The dead ends. Weeks rolled on, but as daylight waned, the investigation began to lose momentum. Detective Lisa Chang stood in her dimly lit office, staring at the corkboard plastered with evidence and photographs. The colorful images of Emily Harris's bright smile stood in stark contrast to the grim reality they faced. Names, dates, and witness statements morphed into a jumbled puzzle that pushed the boundaries of her patience. The reported sightings of the mysterious man came up empty. Police distributed flyers with his description throughout the area, even setting up a tip hotline. But as calls flooded in, they typically led to dead ends. A face that once buzzed with hope began to feel like an echo of frustration. Every lead slipped through their fingers like sand. Timelines distorted, memories blurred, and the weight of uncertainty settled heavily on the priest. As autumn rolled in, the air turned colder, and the shadows stretched longer. Detective Chang met with several detectives to discuss forensic reports, hoping the scientific evidence would provide a breakthrough. They examined the items found at the crime scene at the scarf, and a few DNA samples, but results trickled in painfully slow. The DNA did not match any known criminals in the database, and what remained of Emily's fingernail offered little more than an intimate glimpse into her final moments. Friends and family organized vigils. Banners proclaiming justice adorned the streets. But every flicker of hope dimmed when men and women would approach the detective, desperate for updates that continued to evade them. Emily's smile haunted them. Neighborhood watch groups formed, the town spiraling deeper into a collective paranoia. Eyes scanning the treetops for shadows. With resources thinning and leads dwindling, Chang found herself sitting at a crossroads, plagued with uncertainties and self-doubt. The community looked to her for answers, eyes wide with concern. She could almost feel the weight of Emily's spirit hovering near, reminding her of a promise made to the girl who brought life to the people around her. It was a haunting whisper that propelled her forward, even as the trail grew colder. And she vowed to uncover the truth, no matter how twisted and haunting it might become. A break in the case. The crisp air of late fall hung thick with tension as Detective Lisa Chang continued her relentless pursuit of justice for Emily. Just as the dark clouds of despair began to wrap around her, a glimmer of hope emerged from the shadows. In the unlikely form of a young woman named Sarah, a waitress who had just started working at a diner on the edge of town, 2 blocks from the creek where Emily's life ended. Sarah, feeling the weight of the case on her conscience, had been hesitant to speak up at first. She vividly recalled a man from her past, someone she had seen at the diner days before the tragedy. With the stress of the investigation increasingly palpable, she had finally summoned the courage to approach Detective Chang at a recent community meeting. As she spoke, her voice quivered like a thread barely holding onto its fraying edge. He was unkempt, with a scruffy beard and a wild-eyed demeanor. The whispers of the diner staff filled the air, saying he had often loitered outside, acting strangely. Panic had set in when he came in one afternoon for coffee, his demeanor unsettling as he engaged her in conversation. He had shown an unsettling interest in the local area, specifically in the nearby creek. Nervous about his presence, she'd cast him aside as just another eccentric locale until now. The detective recognized the gravity of Sarah's revelation. This man could potentially be the key to unraveling Emily's murder. That night, Detective Chang pored over surveillance footage from the diner, watching for any sign of the man Sarah described. At one point, she distinctively caught a glimpse of him. The camera captured his features, partially obscured but recognizable nonetheless. With the intel rushing through her mind, Chang began tracking down leads, piecing together sightings within a widening loop of potential location. After combing through missing person reports and local disturbances, she hoped to find a name to attach to the face that haunted that grainy video. A real name, an address, anything that could set them on the path to the suspect who had tormented Emily in her final moments. With renewed resolve and energy, the detective engaged her colleagues, rallying them together. This was the spark they had been waiting for. Perhaps they were finally closer to understanding the chilling truth behind the shadows that loomed in Lawrence Township. Stepping out into the night, Chang felt a flicker of determination reignite. Emily's voice whispered through her heart, urging her forward as they ventured deeper into the darkness that had claimed so much already. The suspect, Detective Lisa Chang, and her team gathered around a cluttered table, their eyes riveted to an enlarged photograph of the man captured on the diner's surveillance footage. The grainy image lacked clarity, but even through the distortion, it was clear that the unkempt figure had a presence that was hard to forget. This was Curtis Miller, a transient whose erratic behavior had been reported on numerous occasions in town. The deeper they dug into his background, the more unsettling the details became. Miller had a history of trespassing and harassment, not only in Lawrence Township, but across several neighboring counties. Each incident woven together a tapestry of troubled encounters painted a disturbing portrait of a man teetering on the edge. His sporadic bouts of homelessness made him difficult to track. But now, armed with a name, the team set off to find him, propelled by an urgency that thrummed through the air. Days passed, and the search led them to a rundown motel on the outskirts of town. Hollowed eyes peered from behind torn curtains as Detective Chang and her partner knocked on the door of room 12. The peeling paint and faded signs of neglect outlined Miller's existence, encapsulating a life filled with instability and violent tendencies. A low whimper could be heard from within, followed by silence. With renewed focus, they were prepared for anything. The officer shouted a warning before bursting through the door, the hinges creaking in protest. Inside, they found Miller, visibly disheveled and panicked, his hands trembling as he clutched a half-empty bottle of cheap whiskey. There was no denying the look of dread on his face as they approached, the sinister air of his past chasing him relentlessly. As he was taken into custody, questions swirled through the minds of the detectives. Was he indeed Emily's attacker, the specter that haunted her final moments? A whirlwind of emotions danced in Chang's chest as Miller was led away. She prepared for the lengthy interrogation process that would follow. Determined to extract the truth from this man who held the answers she desperately sought. In the stark fluorescent lighting of the interrogation room, Chang steeled herself as she made her entrance. She needed to face this Manto dig into the darkness of his Solto coax. A confession from the abyss that consumed him. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation. This was the moment where truth and deception would collide, and with it, the hope of bringing justice to Emily and closure to a town held captive by fear. The trial. Months had passed since Curtis Miller was arrested, but the weight of the case still hung heavily over Lawrence Township. The anticipation of the trial gripped the community, every detail scrutinized by residents eagerly awaiting both an unveiling of the truth and a measure of justice for Emily Harris. The small courthouse brimmed with supporters, friends, and family members alike, gathered to witness the proceedings that would determine not only Miller's fate, but also the town's healing process. Under the piercing gaze of the courtroom, Detective Lisa Chang sat toward the back, anxiety coiling within her. She had poured countless hours into the case, each piece of evidence a building block toward the verdict that would echo through the community. As the judge called the court to order, she felt a suffocating silence envelop the room, punctuated only by the rustle of papers. Miller sat stoically, a mix of defiance and resignation playing across his worn features. He had a story to tell, even if it was a tangled web of half-truths and denial. Prosecution presented their case first, methodically detailing the evidence that had led to Miller's arrest. They outlined the findings from the crime scene beneath the scarf, the bruising on Emily's body, the psychological profile that suggested a pattern of predation, each layer peeling away to reveal the harrowing truth. Emily's family members wept silently as the photos of her radiant smile contrasted painfully with the gruesome nature of the case. Miller's defense attorney pushed back against the prosecution with a different narrative, attempting to distort the facts. They questioned the integrity of eyewitness testimonies and suggested that law enforcement had rushed to judgment, targeting a vulnerable man due to his living situation. This strategy prompted gasps from the audience as community members exchanged incredulous glances. It was a desperate attempt to sow doubt. As the days wore on, Chang took detailed notes, bracing herself for the moment she would be called to the stand. When she finally stepped forward, the air crackled with tension. She recounted her investigation, reliving each moment as if it were fresh in her mind. Under intense questioning, she remained composed, her steady voice unwavering as she reaffirmed the evidence that linked Miller to Emily's death. With each expert witness who took the stand, the prosecution slowly built a fortress of evidence. And by the time closing arguments were made, Chang felt hopeful yet apprehensive. The jury's deliberation would determine the course of everything that followed. As the jury returned a collective breath caught in the room's verdict was read. We, the jury, find the defendant, Curtis Miller, guilty of first-degree murder. The words prescribed a stillness that rushed over the courtroom, followed by disbelief and a wave of relief. Though a sense of justice prevailed, the scars in the community and within Emily's family remained etched deep, a stark reminder of the darkness they had faced. As the gavel pounded, marking the end of a chapter, Chang left the courtroom, her heart heavy yet relentless. Justice had been served, but Emily's spirit would forever be intertwined with the light and shadow dance of a small town learning to heal. The aftermath. In the weeks following Curtis Miller's conviction, the ripple effects of the trial reverberated through the fabric of Lawrence Township. The verdict had brought a measure of closure, yet the scars of Emily's murder lingered like a haunting melody, woven through the lives of those who had loved. The community, once filled with the cacophony of laughter and the innocence of youth, now reverberated with whispers of what had transpired. Shadows lurked in places once considered safe. Detective Lisa Chang staunchly supported the town, determined to facilitate the healing process. With each passing day, she observed a gradual transformation in the atmosphere as citizens began to reclaim their lives. Vigils were held in Emily's memory, often punctuated by messages of resilience and the promise of vigilance. The town rallied together, igniting community programs aimed at awareness and safety. Discussions opened avenues to strengthen their collective resolve against the darkness that had threatened their peace. Emily's family, though still enveloped in mourning, found solace in the connections forged throughout the trial. They organized events honoring her memory, celebrating her life, and the impact she had on those around her. As they shared stories of her dreams and ambitions, the echoes of Emily's laughter started to weave a fabric of hope amid the tragedy. Inspiring initiatives in local schools about kindness, mentorship, and environmental preservation values she held dear. As the seasons shifted, Chang found herself reflecting on the toll the case had taken. She battled many demons in the confines of her mind, haunted late at night by the questions that lingered, the what-ifs that had dogged her relentlessly. Yet, in the heart of the aftermath, she discovered a renewed sense of purpose. She became an advocate for mental health support among first responders, determined to share the load they all bore, often in silence. The autumn leaves began to fall, a symbolic shedding of the pain that the community had endured. While the memory of Emily was bittersweet, her spirit had forged an indelible mark on the hearts of those who remained, a testament to resilience even in the face of tragedy. Detective Chang stood at the edge of the creek, where the dazzling sunlight played upon the water's surface. As she placed a single flower upon the bank, she whispered a silent promise into the breeze of, "Vow to remember and honor the beauty of Emily's life, while continuously seeking justice for those who couldn't speak for themselves." The footprints left behind by the storm of the past would guide the future of Lawrence Township, serving as a reminder of the darkness that could lie hidden, but also the light that could rise from its relentless pursuit of remembrance, safety, and unwavering connection to one another. Reflection. As the first snowflakes of winter began to blanket Lawrence Township, Detective Lisa Chang nestled into the quietude of her home. The world outside had transformed into a frosty wonderland, but inside, her heart reflected a turbulent mix of emotions. The echo of the trial's verdict still resonated in her mind, a haunting reminder of the darkness they had confronted together as a community. Yet, with the chill of winter came an opportunity for introspection, a moment to reflect on the journey that had unfolded since Emily Harris's tragic fate had altered the course of so many lives. Chang spent her evenings poring over her case notes, but beyond the details of evidence and witness accounts, it was the memories of Emily that lingered. The photographs of her vibrant smile no longer felt like a burden. Instead, they had morphed into a call for action, a reminder of the vulnerable lives that sought autonomy and security in distressed neighborhoods. Emily's ambition to advocate for the environment echoed in her commitment to creating safe space, a mission she realized she could champion. In the solitude of her kitchen, Chang brewed a cup of tea, the comforting aroma wrapping around her like a warm embrace. She thought of her colleagues, the support they had forged amidst the storm. They had come together not just as law enforcement, but as beacons of hope in a sea of darkness. They had each played a role in uncovering a truth that had the power to mend hearts and stimulate change. With each passing day, she claimed a renewed sense of responsibility and purpose. Inspired, she planned how she could expand community programs, host discussions on safety, and foster an open dialogue about the importance of mental health. Every initiative would carry Emily's name. Every step forward, an homage to the young woman whose dreams had been extinguished too soon. In that stillness, Chang felt the weight of her resolve settle within her. It ignited a fire that would not only honor Emily's life, but forge connections that could uplift and protect the town from future tragedies. The past had taught them valuable lessons, and now it would serve as a guide for a brighter path ahead, intertwining hopes and warnings in a beautiful, resilient tapestry.